YouTube, what's going on? Another Summoning Salt reaction. This time, epilepsy warning, by the way. Epilepsy warning. Choco Mountain, the history of Mario Kart 64's most infamous track. I didn't even know this is infamous. So, 0.3 and half a cart length. Dude, that was crazy. Ow. Once again, this is Summoning Salt. Please go and give them a view, give them a like. These videos are always really damn good, really damn entertaining. I always have a lot of fun, and there's still so much that we can check out, so I'm excited. But for now, Choco Mountain, the history of Mario Kart 64's most infamous track, and once again, epilepsy warning, so be careful if you're at risk. And I'm going to stand because I haven't stood in the past 2 hours. And I did not notice until now. So let me stretch out the legs. Ugh. And the back. The audio should be good, right? Because I mean, they've all been on Summoning Salt's channel.
This
although
is Choco Mountain.
You might have changed stuff over the years. So is it good?
Nintendo's Mario Kart 64, and honestly, it doesn't look too crazy at first glance. It's just a brown course with a white sky. No crazy upside down or underwater driving like in the newer games.
It's good.
The walls are practically right on top of you.
Thanks, man.
So you don't really have much room to navigate around the track. But you see, this course has a bit of a reputation. There's a group of people who've been battling each other for the past couple of decades to finish the course in world record time. What attracts these gamers to Choco Mountain in particular? Well, probably the fact that this course can be absolutely and completely broken.
Hell yeah. Choco Mountain, the history of Mario Kart 64's most infamous track. I just realized I have to make like 3 thumbnails and 3 videos and ugh. Maybe I just won't upload them right away. I don't know yet. We'll see. What up, McGee? How you doing, bro? Am I still the only one here? Because my YouTube stream is even more dead than my Twitch stream. Granted, it's still very new. It's only a couple months.
Let's start by taking a close look at the track itself.
Since I started multi-streaming,
Choco Mountain begins with a few quick turns toward the top of the course, followed by a long 180-degree turn that puts you inside a tunnel. During each of these turns, it's optimal to do what's known as a mini turbo. You press R to hop and start your turn to go into a drift, with white smoke coming out of the bottom of your cart. You then push the control stick in the opposite direction that the turn is and push it back again. The smoke should turn yellow. Do the same thing with the control stick again and the smoke turns orange. That means your mini turbo is complete. So do you want to watch a fandom soon?
If you keep asking me, definitely not.
It sounds like this will be a slow process, but a skilled player can execute
I'll get to it if I get to it if I want to.
In a row around the course.
Miggy, what's up, by the way? Sans default.
The entire start of Choco Mountain is, fittingly, a loop around a chocolate mountain.
The music in these videos is always so good.
As you can see from this overhead view. After going through the tunnel, you drive along a winding section with hills on both sides of you. Then, you make another 180-degree turn around a pool of water with boulders falling from above. Then another right turn, a few more bouncing hills, and you're finished with the lap.
Dude,
alright, doesn't seem so crazy.
I can't be the only one that had really good runs get ruined by one of these fucking boulders landing on me.
February 1997. But it didn't take too long before people figured out that there was a lot more to this track than met the eye. And it all started with a shortcut that was discovered literally right after the game came out. Although several players probably discovered this shortcut independently of one another, it was first documented in an email from legendary Mario Kart 64 player David Wan from April 19th, 1997.
Jesus Christ, okay. The Great Wall Jump.
The email provided the following instructions for performing the shortcut. Drive through Choco Mountain as normal until you come to the part where you can see the overpass on your left. In the time trial mode, you can see a guardrail to your left. Go to the part just before it starts going downhill, and then turn 90 degrees to your left. Drive into the wall and press the R button to jump at about the moment you hit it.
Like, how do people figure this shit out? I don't understand.
This little technique became known as a wall jump. Practically anywhere in the game, if you drive into a wall and press R to hop the instant before you hit the wall, you will jump off of the wall and go much, much higher. Mario Kart 64 runs at about 30 frames per second on the NTSC version, so in most situations you only have a 30th of a second to time a wall jump. But Since your kart is traveling so fast, sometimes it's not possible at all to time the wall jump. The window you have to jump is actually smaller than the length that your kart travels in a frame if you're going top speed. So, sometimes your kart skips over that perfect position and hits the wall before you have a chance to jump. This is known as the 0 frame jump, and when it happens, your kart tumbles like this. Looking at the overhead view of Choco Mountain, it's easy to see why this saves so much time. The shortcut is performed here, and you're jumping from the lower portion to the upper portion. When the designers made this course, they put both ends of the loop around the water right next to each other. The idea was to put a guardrail on the upper portion so you wouldn't fall off onto the lower portion, and put a wall next to the lower portion so you couldn't get up to the top.
Yeah.
But with the wall jump being discovered, that pretty much eliminated the wall barrier. So as long as players were able to press the R button at the right time, and didn't get 0 framed, they would be able to skip the long loop around the water with boulders falling and save a few seconds.
Dude.
In that same email, David Wan provided the first 2 shortcut world record times for Choco Mountain. 29:86 for the fastest single lap, and 1:32:53 for the fastest 3 laps. Unfortunately, no video exists for either of these times, and I couldn't find a picture of them anywhere either. Still, the times were particularly important because they set the groundwork for the 2 ways Choco Mountain could be played. Either non-shortcut, where you drive around like normal, or shortcut, where you do the wall jump. And over the next couple of months in 1997, there were reports that players lowered the shortcut times by realizing that you didn't need to actually stop to do the wall jump.
I was just
You could
gonna
instead
say
just drift into the wall like this.
I was just gonna say it's gonna
Kevin
get like
Booth
that.
Reportedly lowered the 3-lap world record down to a 128, and someone with the nickname ABE apparently took it down to 122.
What the fuck?
And then came June 24th, 1997. David Wan would send out another email on this day, and he was about to reveal to the world more about Choco Mountain. If you thought the wall jump was crazy, get ready. David Wan's about to completely destroy Choco Mountain.
Okay. Dude, Chris. 4? Chris, thanks for the recommendation.
Wan
This is
had
already
discovered
insane.
one shortcut on Choco Mountain, the Gray Wall Jump. But this email had 3 more, and the kicker, all 3 were discovered within the same 24-hour period. Shortcut number 1. After completing 7/16 of a lap, go immediately to the left and jump scale the mountain. Rapidly jump with the R button while driving into the mountain. If you do this in the right place, you'll completely clear the mountain and your kart will flip for a few seconds and land just behind 3 hills immediately behind the finish line. Let's see what's actually happening here. The player's goal is to get from about this spot to about this spot. Normally, if you try to hop up the side of any hill or mountain on the track, you'll just tumble down when you get to the top.
Yeah.
But, as you can see in this 2008 video from Matthias Rustemeyer, there's one
Matthias,
polygon
of
here
course.
at the top that you can just barely jump onto.
Jesus
If
Christ,
you do,
one polygon.
it'll cause you to tumble down the other way, skipping you across the whole loop. Shortcut number 2. Just before you reach the big hill prior to the overpass area, go directly into the wall on your left. Drive into it at full speed and jump as you hit it. If you do this in the right place, you will clear the wall and land in the same area as in the first shortcut. This shortcut was more or less a faster version of the jump scaling shortcut.
Yeah, but it's
You end up
harder.
cutting out a little less of the track, but the time you save from not having to jump your way up and down the wall more than makes up for it.
Wow.
Shortcut number 3. At the very beginning of the course, just drive around 1 kart length forward from the start line and drive into the wall on your left with the aid of a mushroom. Jump with the R button as you hit it, and you might land on top of the mountain. If you do it properly, Lackity will pick you up and place you right at the tunnel. This one might look the most crazy of all of them, but in reality, all that was happening was you got boosted up to right around the point where the track overlaps itself. The game thinks you're right next to the tunnel, so it puts you inside of it when you get set back down. Unfortunately, Wan also mentioned that he didn't believe the trick was possible to do in the time trials mode, since he'd only gotten it to work in the Grand Prix 150cc mode. Your top speed is slightly faster in 150cc than in time trials, and since you needed to jump up so high, the more speed you had, the better.
Interesting.
Well, now the floodgates were open. World records were available to any skilled player who wanted to get them. David Wan was once again the first to do so, providing times of 23:81 for the fastest single lap and 1:14:52 for the fastest 3 laps of Choco Mountain. The jump scaling shortcut ended up being pretty useless for his purposes, since it was slower and more difficult than the hill jump. The huge wall jump shortcut at the start didn't help him much either, since world records were done in time trials instead of 150cc. But this hill jump was huge. It saved about 5 seconds per lap over the gray wall
That's
jump,
it?
and it wasn't incredibly difficult. Just time the jump correctly and hope you
It
didn't get
looks
0
like a
frames.
crazy shortcut.
That's where the 5-second time save came from over Juan's old single lap record, and how he was able to cut off so much time over the 3-lap world record. His strategy was to do a hill jump and drive as well as he could for the fastest single lap, and do a hill jump once each lap for the 3-lap record. As time went on, more skilled players came along to take the record lower. But you must keep in mind the mentality of speedrunning was different back in the late 90s. It operated more off of a system of trust and respect. If you were a respected runner who could prove your skills through live appearances or some videotapes, most reasonable times you submitted would be accepted even without much evidence. A lot of world record runs didn't have video proof, and weren't well documented other than old websites and Yahoo Groups posts. So it's nearly impossible to decipher exactly who got world records when in Mario Kart 64 from back in the late 90s.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense.
From what I
we
could
didn't have
gather,
capture
the
cards
world
and shit like
records for
that.
Choco Mountain traded hands a few times in late 1997 and early 1998. Jason Walls, Kevin Booth, Jonathan Bernier, and possibly a few other people all took turns lowering the Choco Mountain shortcut records in 97 and 98. But a guy named Alex Penev would end up changing the playing field. Up until this point, nobody had held any Choco Mountain shortcut record for longer than a few months. Penev would end up holding the 3-lap Choco Mountain shortcut record for a total of 4 years and 10 months. He would end up holding the 1-lap record for a total of more than 6 years.
Jesus Christ.
Penev is well known for having speedran dozens of games at very high levels. Nearly every Mario Kart game, other Mario games, and Zelda, just to name a few. His first Choco Mountain record achieved was the 1-lap record on September 30th, 1998. He would proceed to lower this record 12 times. The only time he didn't have this record from then until December 2005 was a 1-year span from August 2001 through August 2002 when Miller had the record. Penev also realized that the tunnel warp at the start was possible to do in time trials if you drift into the wall like this. It saved around 2 seconds, and using it he lowered the 1-lap time down to sub 20 seconds.
Oh my god.
His reign over the 3-lap record was similar. He first got it in October 1998 and lowered it 7 times. The only time he didn't have this record from then until December 2005 was a 2-year span from May 2000 to August 2002 when Simmons had the world record. Now there's one very important distinction about Alex Penev that I have to make. He played on the PAL version of the game. The NTSC version of Mario Kart 64 runs at about 30 frames per second, while the PAL version of the game runs at 25 frames per second. This meant that the PAL version only ran at 5/6 the speed of the NTSC version. So not only would the game be played in slightly slower motion on PAL, but all times would be about 17% slower too. In order to compensate for this, the Mario Kart 64 community created the combined rank system, which could accurately compare times from each version
America
of the game.
better.
A 30-second lap on PAL, for example,
For
would be
fuck's sake.
equivalent to a 25-second lap on NTSC. For simplicity's sake, I'm just going to be referring to most PAL times as their NTSC equivalent. Anyway, Penev was able to take the fastest lap time down about half a second, to 21.58 seconds by just driving
Lightspeed,
better,
these videos
and
are
then
crazy,
to about
lad.
19.5 seconds by using the tunnel jump. He was cutting corners tighter, having cleaner mini turbos, all while doing a hill jump every time. He would take the 3-lap time down to 107.32 by 2002 by doing the same thing.
Jesus.
In the first few months of Mario Kart 64's release, 4 shortcuts were found on Choco Mountain. Over the next several years, 0 new shortcuts were found. Instead, a few were theorized. In the early 2000s, Miller theorized a trick where you would bounce off of the wall in the tunnel and trigger the next lap to start. Although he got some very strange bounces from the
What a
walls, he
disaster.
was never able to get his trick to work. Greg I from the Mario Kart forums also theorized a trick. It was very similar to the existing wall jump at the start of the track, only instead of getting picked up by Lakitu, you would hold left as you jumped and completely clear over the wall and land on the track below. Once again, however, while this trick was attempted, nobody was able to get it to work.
Does it mean you should keep saying that?
Yes,
Because the last
Choco Mountain was still
video,
an unsolved puzzle.
I think it was
Although some
9
pieces of it
times
were
the
put
dude
together,
had
it
31
was
out
clear
of
there was
32
still a
world
lot more to
records,
the
and
track
then he
that
would get
hadn't yet been
sniped
found.
before he could get
But
the
while
last
they
one.
searched for more shortcuts, they figured they might
So
as well
somebody
get some more
saw,
world records
said
as
like
well.
disaster would strike, and so I guess she was just
Over on the
mocking
one-lap
that
side,
he used the word
Shadow of
disaster.
Miles was able to get a 17:68 lap in 2005, which
Jesus
is more than a
Christ.
second and a half faster than Penev's best time. It was the same route of doing a tunnel jump at the start and then doing a hill jump, but his hill jump was so clean that he landed safely on the track without needing to tumble down the other side. This lap would end up standing for over 4 years.
Wow.
For the 3-lap record, Carlo and Miles took turns lowering it with the help of a tunnel jump and 3 hill jumps. Recorded runs were much more common at this point, but as you could see from Carlo's videotapes, they weren't always of the highest quality.
Yeah, no kidding.
A camcorder recording of a VHS tape was sometimes the best we have. Well, now we're moving on to the year 2007.
Yeah, that's true. You would like film yourself on VHS,
one of my favorite speedrunners of all time,
and then put a camcorder on the table aimed at the TV.
But you're definitely not going to forget him now. This is VAJ.
Lightspeed, you clearly didn't see the videos that we watched the other day.
VAJ began getting Mario Kart 64 world records in the mid-2000s, and by 2007 he was working on Choco Mountain. On May 8th of that year, he got a new world record, a 1:12.50 on PAL, equivalent to a 1 minute flat time for NTSC, done by executing 3 hill jumps and 2 tunnel jumps. Like most, he submitted this time to the Choco Mountain leaderboards on MarioKart64.com, but he was too hyped to do that right away. Instead, he turned on his camcorder and filmed his reaction to the time first.
This is what I'm talking about, muchacho! World record! Let's do it again! Check this out! Woo! VAJ!
As much of a character as VAJ is, he's also an incredibly
Storming
good
yesterday
Mario
Wi-Fi.
Kart
I
64
hope you're all good, man.
One of the best ever to play the game, in fact.
Played $5 game
This
yesterday.
3-lap
Too
time
risky.
of his
Pepe
stood
hands.
for nearly 7 years. And in the
Get a
meantime,
UPS
he was
like
busting
me.
out world record after world record on nearly every other track in the
This
game.
is the way.
One of those world records was for Choco Mountain 1 lap. He lowered Miles' 4.5-year-old world record in 2010 before being beaten by Carlo, and then he eventually took it down to a 17:59, or 21:15 on PAL in 2013. He didn't record a reaction video this time, unfortunately, but he did
I have one
provide a
thrifted.
video
You
of
see,
the
of
run
course.
itself. No new strategies were used. It was all just the tunnel jump and the hill jump once again. But you can see
Oh,
how
the battery
tightly he was
died?
cutting
Pepe
all his
hands.
turns. He was trying to leave no margin of error for anybody to beat his time. So now we're in 2014. VAJ is in control of both Choco Mountain shortcut records, and for the past decade, the discovery of new strategies has been pretty dormant. But remember back in 2005, Greg posted about a theoretical shortcut where you would jump completely over the wall at the start and land on the track below. For 9 years, it seemed to be no more than a theory. And then, in February 2014, Greg posted this in the Mario Kart forums. Greg called out the possibility of this trick, and 9 years later, he was the one to do it for the first time.
9
He hit
years
the wall in the
later.
perfect spot, held left, and was able to completely clear the wall to land on the track below. As you can see, this trick would skip the whole loop at the start just like the old tunnel jump did, but instead of having Lakitu pick you up while the timer keeps ticking, you simply land and keep driving. The key to this trick was the setup. Instead of drifting into the wall and using a mushroom, you had to perform what's known as a snag boost. If you're holding B and use a mushroom while touching a wall, the wall initially holds you back and drastically increases your speed. When you release from the wall, you'll fly forward at a really high speed. So high a speed that when you jump off of the wall,
I always
you'll
find
be
the
able to
exhaust
completely
looks like
clear it and
eyes.
skip getting picked up by Lakitu. This
They
trick
look
would
like
be known as
faces.
the Greg style, named after its creator. It saved around 2 seconds over the old tunnel jump, and throughout February 2014, Greg and Zoran took turns lowering the 1-lap record until it came down to a 15:88, held by Greg. Now, Greg made his forum post at around 9:30 AM on February 2nd, 2014. Mario Kart 64 players from around the world immediately flocked to the thread to congratulate him on his find. Some were amazed by the find, while others were getting ready to try for the world record. However, one person's reaction was different from everybody else's. This guy, Whether or Not, commonly called Weatherton in the Mario Kart 64 community. Weatherton is a Mario Kart 64 tasser, someone who plays the game in an emulator with tools, such as slowing everything down, moving frame by frame, and making save states, to create a theoretically perfect run. Weatherton, too, was excited about this new discovery, but he immediately had an idea to make it even better. At 1 in the afternoon on February 2nd, about 3.5 hours after Greg's original post, Weatherton said that he thought a sub 10 second lap was possible. His idea was to jump off the wall, fly to the left and land out of bounds on a certain polygon somewhere over here, then get placed back behind the finish line by Lakitu and finish
So
the
TAS
lap.
stuff was run this
So
this
he used
long
his
ago?
TAS abilities to try to get it to work.
What
the
the
next
fuck?
day, February 3rd at 7:30 in the
Okay,
evening,
wait, this is
he
14.
posted two
Okay.
discoveries. One, he
I
wasn't
didn't
able
realize
to
it was
land
10
his
years
trick.
ago. I thought it was 20
And
years ago. I was
two,
like, what?
He had just found a different trick. Probably the craziest trick in Mario Kart 64's history, the Weather Tanko.
What the fuck?
A 6-second lap. How is it possible? The answer lies in how the game handles checkpoints around the track. We know from the old tunnel jump that if you get stuck at the top of the hill, the game thinks you're in the tunnel and Lakitu will drop you there. For the Weather Tanko, you need to hit a very precise place on the wall so that your character will clip into the wall ever so slightly. This too makes the game think that you're at the tunnel. Then, once you drop back down, as long as you're behind the finish line, the game will think you're at the end of the lap, so all you need to do is cross it. A 6-second lap was miles ahead of what anyone dreamed could ever be possible. But keep in mind, this was a tool-assisted speedrun, so it wasn't a world record, but rather a proof of concept. Just because someone could prove that the trick was possible didn't mean a human could pull it off quite yet. This trick had a lot of parts to it. You needed to not get zero framed, bounce high enough, hit the exact right part of the wall, and bounce far enough to the left to land behind the finish line. Some of the top-ranked players around the world began trying to be the first human to hit the trick. VAJ, who is ranked number 1 in the world for shortcuts, Greg, who is ranked number 2, and other top-tier players like Miller and Jones. By July 2014, 5 months after the trick had been discovered, still nobody had been able to land the Weather Tanko. They came close, getting all sorts of jumps near the top of the wall, but it was just too precise for anybody to land. At least until August 3rd. That day, someone posted that they had finally been able to pull off the Weather Tanko. But it wasn't VAJ or Greg or any of the really highly ranked shortcut players. It was the 29th ranked shortcut player. A guy
Of course
with
it's
the username
Abney.
Abney317.
Of course it's fucking Abney.
.589. This beat the old single lap record by 10 seconds. And as you can imagine, people freaked out. This was Abney's first world record. Not just for Choco Mountain, but in all of Mario Kart 64
Oh, wow.
speedrunning. Nobody was able to take it from him for a few months. But that November, the competition heated up again. On November 5th, 2014, Patricio managed to take the record from Abney with a 544. Abney decided that he didn't feel like losing the Weather Tanko record, so he did some attempts on the same day and beat Patricio's time twice, ultimately getting the record down to a 488.
What the hell?
But guess who came back the very next day to break Abney's record?
Check this out! I beat the task, yo! Second lap, man! I don't have the replay because I pressed start and it happened in 10 minutes. Just 10 minutes, man! 10 minutes after my 5:17 on the first lap. I was like, you know what? Let's try second lap. And then I hit it, motherfucker! I went over the finish, I just pressed the shroom, I jumped, and then I hit it. I was like, whoa! Fucking hell! Ebony, I got you, man! VJ's back, yo! Check this out, yo!
VAJ would hold on to this record of 3.26 for a few months, but Abney would end up tying and eventually beating his time in the early months of 2015. Abney would continue lowering the one-lap record closer and closer to 3 seconds flat over the next few years.
Jesus
The
Christ.
3-lap record, however, was a little different. It was a story that had not yet been written. Before the Weather Tanko was discovered, you would have to drive around the track and get as many hill jumps or tunnel jumps as
So the
possible
time
to
was
get a
like,
world
yeah,
record.
right?
The Weather Tanko completely changed the playing
My
field.
man's fucking
You're
thriving.
given 3 mushrooms to work with in time trials, so you could potentially hit 3 Weather Tankos, 1 on each lap, and be done with the whole race super quickly, in under 20 seconds possibly.
That's
So by late 2014, the question had to be
Insane.
asked, how many Weather Tankos could somebody hit in a single race? For a while, the answer was just one. Abney got a couple of 3-lap records that were under a minute shortly after he pulled off the first weather tanko in November 2014. These were both done by executing one weather tanko at the start and then trying to land as many hill jumps as possible after.
Yeah. Figured
On
as
January
much.
16th, 2015, Abney once again made history. He became the first person to pull off 2 weather tankos in the same run. This pushed the 3-lap record down to 44 seconds, and that's where it stood for more than a year. Was hitting 3 out of 3 weather tankos possible? I mean, sure, theoretically it was, but Abney's odds in hitting a weather tanko on any given attempt were only about 1 in 40. He needed to hit 3 of these in a row, so that put the odds at about 1 in 64,000 that an attempt would be able to hit 3 weather
Oh, like
tankos.
Mario Kart 64.
In the summer of 2017, Abney made a decision. He was going to try to get a 3 out of 3 weather tanko run, and nothing was going to stop him. He was going to start, hit a weather tanko, immediately set up and hit another one, and then immediately set up and hit a third one. Back to back to back. And I know what a lot of you are probably thinking right now. Why was Abney bothering to do this? He was literally booting up his stream just to drive into a wall over and over again for a few hours. You'd think that it would be incredibly boring to watch him do these attempt sessions, but that wasn't at all the case. He streamed all of his attempts on Twitch, and the chat there was filled with hundreds of people anxiously awaiting the one run that would be the one. They watched him as his attempt counter climbed higher and higher. First past 10,000 attempts, and then past 20,000.
Jesus.
Most people wouldn't have had the patience to do these attempts nearly every day for weeks. But Abney knew Choco Mountain was at its breaking point.
Not even a jump, dude. Oh, God.
He had almost killed the most infamous track in the game. All he needed was one attempt.
Oh, God, dude. We got 2 out of 3. Like,
Dude.
I already get the 2 out.
One perfect attempt that would grant him the title of one of the most legendary speedrun world records ever.
Nerves was crazy. Dude, imagine after like 20,000 attempts, 26,000 attempts. You get 2 and your nerves must just be shot. They gotta be worse than mine right now. Ahi.
Yes! Let's go! Let's go! That's it!
Wow.
Yes!
26,000, dude.
Let's go.
He uses that let's go as an alert now? That's funny. Is that hard to do? God damn.
26,461 attempts later, Abney had accomplished what was thought to be impossible. Choco Mountain had been all but destroyed. All the years of figuring out shortcut after shortcut, taking world record after world record, had finally culminated in a 3 out of 3 weather tanko. As of the time I'm making this video, nobody's replicated this feat, and I can't imagine what somebody would have to go to lower the 3-lap record anymore.
Yeah, no kidding.
The 1-lap record, on the other hand, was recently taken below 3 seconds by a guy named Frankie.
Jesus Christ.
Yes!
Abney's tied this time a couple of days later, and has been trying to push it lower ever since. In total, 13 people have been able to pull off a weather tanko, with 11 of them doing it in the time trials mode. The fastest time coming from the aforementioned world record, and the slowest time coming from Theodore 59. Another couple of quick things I have to mention. This game was released in Japan before it was released anywhere else in the world, so Japanese players had the records before anybody else did, and it's possible they may have had faster times than the rest of the world for a while. However, it's not really documented anywhere online, so it's impossible to add them into the timeline.
That makes sense.
And of course, there's a whole different side to Choco Mountain, the non-shortcut side, which is currently dominated by Matthias Rustemeyer. No wall jumps, hill jumps, or weather tankos allowed, just perfect driving around the course. Matisse is definitely one of the best people to ever play Mario Kart 64. Maybe the best ever. The next time you're playing Mario Kart 64, try playing Choco Mountain. See if you could hop over any walls or skip over any parts of the track. Maybe you'll be the next David Wan and discover new shortcuts, or the next Abney, and you're going to defy the odds to hit 3 weather tangles in a row again. Whatever it may be, you can be sure that you've done it on the most infamous track in the game. Thanks for watching.
Insane. I never knew that this
If you
track
like
was
watching
this crazy.
speedruns, be sure to follow me at my Twitch channel, twitch.tv/summoningsalt. Thanks.
Dude, yeah, I had no clue. That was fucking awesome. Dude, these Mario Kart videos just rule. Just rule. Alright. Once again, YouTube, Twitch, that was Summoning Salt. Once again, please go give the original video a view and a like. I'll put it in the description like I always do. That was fire. Yet another banger. That's going to be it. It's only 7:24, but I'm going to end there, set up the YouTube uploads, and then try to go to bed so that I can get up at 3:30 in the morning. But tomorrow, if I don't feel like complete shit, if I have any energy, we'll try to finish Space Marine. So that should be fun. And then Saturday, hopefully I can sleep like a normal human being and then get back to normal. But anyways, YouTube, thanks for watching. Peace.